Hello, everyone. Welcome to NerdChat. We've been gone for a while. I kind of got my appendix removed, and then I got crazy sick. But we're back on track and on schedule. So today I am going to. Our Wednesday video is just kind of whatever I feel like doing. And today I want to put my 2 cents into the Who is Savitar theory from CW. So the first thing, a lot of people's straight answer is he just is Savitar. It's not like I don't know who Savitar is in the comics, but since this is the CW universe, that's probably not the case. And they've made a huge point in trying to reveal Savitar's identity, so it's definitely lined up for it to be someone who we should already know. So it only makes sense that it's an actor or a character that we already have seen on the show, and whoever the Savitar would be, or just Savitar himself, doesn't exist, or at least we haven't seen yet. And it's possible that just is the case. They're trying to it's got to be somebody, but then it just is Savitar. But I doubt that's the case. So I want to put my 2 cents into the why Barry might end up being Savitar theory. So the first reason that I think is important is so Savitar can't kill Barry yet. So he's not just some guy, because if it were the case that his whole future could be changed by just killing Barry, and then he would never be trapped in the Speed Force to begin with, that would be what he's going for. But he says that he creates himself. So by him creating himself. So my thought, this had been brought up, and it got me thinking that Barry, at some point, makes a time remnant of himself in order to get Jay out of the Speed Force. So maybe it is that time remnant that he makes for that, or maybe it's the time remnant that we thought died in season 2. Or maybe it's he makes another one for another reason, but the time remnant is what becomes Savitar. And what I had heard on that theory is that it's because Barry, that future, or the time remnant Barry is mad at current day Barry because he gets to live his perfect life. You know, he gets to have his life with Iris and continue to be the Flash and all of that. So that the time remnant Barry gets jealous of this, and over time becomes Savitar. And being stuck in the Speed Force for all that time, he learns more about he would learn more about the Speed Force and how to create armor and stuff out of it. Which Speed Force constructs are something that Wally West does learn how to do in the comics. So to be able to make armor out of it is something that he would learn, and that is how he would be concealing his identity, is under the Speed Force armor. So basically, Time Remnant Barry could be stuck in the Speed Force for all that time, learning more about it, being stuck there, and he would learn how to create the Speed Force armor that he is wearing. Because it's not just any armor; it's very likely that it's a Speed Force construct, which is a power that Wally West did have in the comics. He was able to make armor, and they even shows that now, where some characters are able to make. Like Barry and Wally in the comics right now, they make their costumes purely out of the Speed Force. It just energizes around them. So that might be an ability that Barry picked up. And then Time Remnant Barry, spending all that time in the Speed Force, would be able to... It would probably make him faster, which is why Savitar is so much more powerful than Barry right now. And actually showing when he is outside the Speed Force, when he comes out and Barry fights him, Savitar is actually not that much faster than Barry. Like, Barry's still able to keep up and fight. So the difference between them is not as big as it was when he was still fighting through the Speed Force. So one of the points that I have not seen be made yet. So there's all the prophecies that Savitar knows about everyone, but one of the things that was said that has been looked over, I think, is when Jay said that the legend goes that Savitar was the first person to be granted speed. And I don't think that enough light has been shed on that point. As far as what we know, who was the first person to get speed? Who was the first person that we saw get speed? It's Barry. Now, as far as the alternate Earths and all of that, Jay has had his powers longer. Even Zoom, it seems, had his powers longer. But as far as in the comics go, the Speed Force was created when Barry was struck by the lightning bolt. The Speed Force did not exist until that point. So, regardless of how space and time and all of that goes around, the Speed Force exists outside of everything else. So if you look at a map of the entire multiverse, which we'll be doing a video on to explain more about the multiverse. So everything in existence that we know of exists in this bubble, every parallel Earth and all of that. Speed Force exists outside of it. So it exists outside of space and time. And it didn't even exist until Barry gets struck by lightning, making him, regardless of whatever point in time you perceive, Barry is the first person to receive speed. And I don't think enough light has been shed on that. So if this is a time remnant of Barry, it would be a version of him from the past, making him be the one that first got speed. So I think that was a clue that no one listened to. Now, I want to be clear. I don't want Savitar to be Barry. But the reason why I think that he might be is because this is another video that I wanted to make, but Daniel O'Brien from Craft.com made a very similar video, so I kind of don't want to do it, but maybe I'll still do it. I still have plenty to say that he has not. Live action superhero stuff has had a theme of the hero being their own worst enemy. So, like right now in Arrow, Prometheus is doing all the things that he is to Oliver because of things that Oliver did in the past. So Oliver created his own worst enemy. It's the same thing that happened in season 2. Deathstroke came after him because Oliver made his own worst enemy. Season 3, it was all the same. Season 4, which is actually my favorite of Arrow, is because nothing was his fault. He just got to be the hero who did save everyone at the end. So it was the same. It's been the same with everything. With Flash, it's his own worst enemy because he pissed off Eobard Thawne in the future, so now he's paying for it in the past because of an enemy he made later on. And then with Zoom, it was just he hates other speedsters. So, and that, I guess season 2 wasn't as much of Barry's fault. That's not true. It is still Barry's fault because he was the one that tried to go back in time at the end of season 1, and by doing so, opened up the singularity that opened up the breaches to other Earths. So it's still Barry's fault. If you think of all the Marvel movies and all that, it's still every enemy is a direct result of something that the hero did. So Tony Stark made the Iron Man suit, and Obadiah Stane wanted it, so voila, he made his own worst enemy. Iron Man 2, same thing. You can, if you look, every enemy that's created is a creation of the hero themselves, and it's because of that point, which is why I think the thought that Barry could be Savitar has a very high chance of being true, and I'm tired of that. So I hope that's not the case, but I definitely would see where it makes sense. So let's just review. So Savitar says he creates himself. So Barry making a time remnant and then having that time remnant take the place in the Speed Force would be a direct result of himself. So he would create himself. He's the first speedster, or he's the first person to receive speed, which we can trace back to being Barry. He knows about all these events that are currently going on, but Savitar is not there to witness them himself, unless if it is a version of Barry. So he knows, he has his prophecies about one will die and one will betray them, one will suffer a fate worse than death, and Barry is personally witnessing all of these events, so he would know in the future to tell himself all of these things. And he says that he wishes he could kill Barry, but he can't, not yet. And it might be because Barry hasn't made that time remnant yet, so that Savitar version of Barry can exist. And he wants Barry to suffer. And if Barry doesn't suffer through those events, that version of him will not exist. So he can't kill Barry yet. But after the remnant is made of him, our Barry can be the one that can be killed by Savitar. So he needs to let all the events play out until a certain point. It does beg the question, so in the next episode, Flash is going to the future, and he sees a future version of himself. So maybe we'll learn more about that. There's also the fact that he's going to the same date as when he disappears in the newspaper, and I think that Flashpoint changed those events. But my point about Barry still being his own worst enemy could be the very fact that because he created Flashpoint, it created Savitar. So that might wrap up into that, but I don't know who else it could be, unless if it just is Savitar, or if it's they're really beating a dead horse with the I trusted this friend and it turns out to be my enemy. So if it's like HR or one of their other friends, that's just exhausting. But he's got to be somebody, and Barry is the only real logical choice that it could be, other than, I don't know, Joe, which he wouldn't kill Iris. So I don't know. Why don't you let me know in the comments down below what your theories are, if you have a theory as to who Savitar is. As I come up with more theories for these kind of shows or whatever, I'll post them if you guys like this kind of stuff. And I don't know if I come up with anything more, I'll try to update. But bye. Videos, subscribe, all that jazz.